like this one. As soon as it popped up this week in the email box, I said this would be a good one for Jim. It comes in from Kay. It said, I had a wreck earlier today and everything happened so fast. I'm starting to wonder whose fault it really was. I know I shouldn't say anything to the other guy's insurance adjuster, but is it safe for me to say something to my own insurance company? I really appreciate Kay's honesty on this one, Jim, because I think anybody's been in an accident. Boom, it can happen fast. And you start thinking about it.
Always happen fast.
Right.
Okay? And you know, you're shaken up and you're not thinking clearly. But a couple things, okay? So when you're talking to your insurance company, be candid, be truthful.
Right.
When you're, my recommendation is don't speak to an potential opposing party's insurance company at all. You're not required to give them a statement. They're not wanting a statement to help your case. It's going to be to help them and pay you less if they owe you money at all. In terms of the fault, look, most people, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not in law enforcement, you don't know the rules of the road, who's at fault necessarily one way or another. What you basically can do is recite the facts, what happened, how fast I was going, here's what I saw, here's what I did, here's what I saw the other person do. It's for the judge, ultimately, the jury, if you try the case, to decide who's at fault. And it may be a percentage. More often than not, when you're in an accident, an automobile accident, for instance, it's maybe multiple people are at fault.
Sure.
Maybe at least two. If it's multiple cars, maybe all of them are some at fault. In Mississippi, we have what's called comparative negligence, which means even if the other side is at fault, a jury would ultimately assess what percentage each party is at fault.
I got you.
And then divide it up that way. And the same thing when you're settling a case. That's how a case would be settled. If they believe that you're partially at fault, then they say, look, we're not going to pay you full value on your claim because you were 20% at fault, we think, or 30% or 40%.
Right.
Okay, and so those are the issues.
So to your advice to Kay then is be honest with your insurance company, and you shouldn't be talking to their other people's insurance company regardless.
No, not at all.
Okay. And then try to figure out when you need to call an attorney on this.
That's right. If you're not talking to them, if it's, you know, again, all this, if it's a minor injury or no injury, then you know, you may want to go ahead and talk to the adjuster. If you think it may potentially be serious, even there's an inkling of that, then you need to talk to an attorney, because these adjusters, you know, they're doing their job.
That's right.
But they're trained, and most of them have done it for years. They've handled thousands and thousands of claims, a lot of them. You've never handled a claim. You're at a complete disadvantage, and you will be taken advantage of if you don't get proper counsel. And the great thing is, guys that do what we do for a living don't have to call our firm necessarily, but we will be glad to talk to you and tell you what we think about your case. It doesn't cost you a nickel.
I have seen Jim and Matt literally, we're at lunch together or hanging out after the show, and I mean, people come all the time. Matt talks about it at church, right? As soon as church gets over, they're getting him in the parking lot. These guys have a lot of free conversations, I can promise you that. Appreciate Kay's email question. If you ever want to give us an email question, rmlawcall.com, just email it in. We try to find a good one for each week's show. Sometimes we got to hold a few in the back pocket, and then we put it into the right show. But we look at every one of them. The staff looks at every one of them. We try to get you the best ones on air as we can. Speaking of conversations, Jim, I was going through the Lucedale Farmers Market this morning, and I'm going to call this one from the farmers market question right here. There was a hot topic going when I came up to the guys serving coffee. They want to know, when does the famed attorney-client privilege start? So if I have an incident and I bring my attorney in, when does that private conversation, when does that protection start with an attorney?
So let's start with what's very clear, okay? When you're speaking to an attorney about a legal matter, it's covered by the privilege, okay? What that means is critically important in all kinds of cases. If you have an attorney, you're consulting with an attorney, I instruct people all the time, no court in the land, no person, no policeman, no one in the land can force you to repeat what you say or what you discuss with your attorney in private unless you discuss have that conversation or repeat that conversation to someone else. And then it's breached and you can be forced to repeat it. So it's critically important about matters that you're consulting with an attorney about, legal matters, that you not repeat them or talk to anyone about them other than your attorney, because then you've breached the attorney-client privilege, and then can be forced to reveal everything in some circumstances that you discuss with your attorney. So very, very important. But it attaches whether you pay an attorney or not. When you're consulting with an attorney about a matter, it's privileged unless you breach that privilege. And if the attorney breaches that privilege, the attorney's in big trouble.
Serious consequences.
That's right. And so
Jim, what about the staff? Like, for example, you and Matt, y'all got people all over the place. I mean, you got somebody at the front, you got paralegals, you got your personal folks, you got investigators. Does that privilege conversation extend to all of your staff?
A little more complicated there, but the general answer, yes, okay?
Okay.
The staff is an extension of the attorney. If you're talking about legal matters, if you're sharing legal documents, then all of that will be privileged. If you're having conversations that aren't of a legal nature, then of course that's not. You know,
yeah,
so you're chatting
What
with
do you
someone,
want for lunch today?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're chatting
I like
with
coffee.
the receptionist or someone, that's not a privileged matter. But if you're dealing with legal matters, legal advice, documents related to your legal matters or legal advice, that's privileged, both extends to the staff and the attorney.
You know, I don't think anybody from the farmers market is probably still up this morning, but hey, we got that answer. Thank you. That's true. They got to get up early, got to go to bed early. So anyway, all right, that takes us
Thanks
into
for
our
watching.
first. Yeah, we appreciate it. Everybody at the farmers market. That takes us into our first break. When we come back, we'll have more of your calls and questions, plus tonight's legal brief here on LawCall.
Welcome back to WLOX Law Call, broadcasting from the Gulf Coast to the Pine Belt, with lawyers from the Biloxi personal injury law firm of Reeves Mestayer, the attorneys for South Mississippi, including Jim Reeves. Known as a tough fighter, Jim has more than 100 cases with a recovery of $1 million or more and is recognized as a top 100 trial lawyer by the National Trial Lawyers Association. Plus Matthew Mestayer. Matthew served as an award-winning judge for nearly 20 years, has recovered millions for his clients, and is deeply involved in community issues on the entire coast. And hosted by broadcaster Ken Flanagan. The show has included over 200 guest attorneys from across Mississippi. This is WLOX Law Call.
And welcome back to Law Call on this Saturday night. We are live here in studio. Thank you so much for staying up with us after the football game. Now, many times the job requires you to do some driving as part of your daily responsibilities. But what happens when you're involved with a car wreck when you're on the clock? Personal injury attorney Matthew Mestayer explains in tonight's legal brief.
If an employee is involved in a car accident while working, he or she is entitled to workers' compensation benefits, including wages while out of work because of the car accident and medical treatment associated with the accident. However, it doesn't end there. The injured worker is also entitled to recover from the at-fault party and from his own automobile insurance policy or the employer's policy. It's important that these benefits be used in coordination with the medical treatment being provided under workers' compensation. Fail to coordinate these benefits and you could lose them. An experienced attorney can help. If an employee is injured in a car accident at lunch or while commuting to or from work, then it may be considered a covered work-related accident. Also, if the employee is running a work-related errand on the way to or from work, that could also be a covered claim. That's your legal brief for tonight. I'm personal injury attorney Matthew Metier. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Good information here on Saturday night. You know, there's a lot of work-related car accidents.
Oh, sure.
I mean, all the time.
Of course.
Y'all got one a couple, I don't want to say it was a big delivery company. I don't want to say anything.
Sure,
Remember
right.
that one back a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have, that happens quite often.
It's just part of it. Our topic tonight, all about injuries. The phone lines are open, 896-0713, or a toll-free number, 1-800-349-0713. That's good from Lucedale to Laurel to all points in Long Beach. Everybody in between, give us a call tonight for our topic. Jim is here live, ready, itching, ready to go. We did have a call during the break, Jim. Didn't want to go on air,
okay.
But did have a very interesting question for you. They were involved with a work-related accident. Thought they were okay. The injuries started to start to hurt more, compile more. Didn't go to the doctor's office until several weeks after the initial accident injuries. She's worried that she's waited too long. What do you think?
Well, no, she have not waited too long. You need to go get medical care first of all as soon as you have a problem. Or
Right.
think you might have a problem after an accident, just to make sure you're okay. Now, obviously, being reasonable is what we're talking about here. If it's a 6-month, 8-month, 9-month, 1-year delay, then starts to look questionable.
Sure,
right?
sure.
But a lot of people are hurt, think they're banged up, try to work through it and have a problem and go to the doctor and it's fine. So it's not fatal to your claim by any means if you wait a few weeks to go and don't go right away. But you need to go get checked out. And I encourage everybody,
Right.
if you're in a serious accident and you have an injury, you need to be checked out by a doctor thoroughly because you're entitled to recover, if you have a claim, future medical expenses. And you don't know what those are going to be unless you have an accurate diagnosis of what your medical condition is, then an opinion from the doctor as to whether you may need a surgery in the future or some other kind of treatment. In that way, you can be compensated for that before you resolve your case.
All right, good stuff. Jim, and you've talked about before the back injuries. I know that you've said that can really, you think you're okay, and that back injury, that lower lumbar, it starts hurting.
What's the one thing, people can have back injuries and look just like we do standing here right now. You look okay, you think you're all right. It's not like some
great,
injuries where it's obvious that someone is badly injured. So being having a back injury that's very debilitating and will make you permanently disabled from a working standpoint if it's not treated properly. So those are very tricky. Standing up and walking, your lower back is the most vulnerable area in a lot of ways of your entire body.
Yeah, right.
In a collision, it's no different. And so you got to be very careful. If you have back injuries, back pains, get those checked out thoroughly and make sure you have a thorough understanding from the doctor as to what your future medical requirements are going to be before your case is resolved.
Gotcha.
That's critical.
Okay. Appreciate the caller coming in on that one. We didn't get you on air, but I think we got your answer for you on air. All right, Jim, let's get to another email question. This comes in from Ivan tonight. Ivan said that my, kind of serious one on this one too, Jim. My cousin was killed in a motorcycle, on his motorcycle when it hit an SUV. It's been suggested my cousin was speeding, but the driver definitely turned in front of him. If they can prove somehow that my cousin was over the speed limit, does that mean his family has no claim against the other driver? Jim, I know this one's a little bit to unpack for you on this one. What are your thoughts? Motorcycles can be so dangerous.
Right. Look, so I've rode motorcycles most of my life. I have one now. They're incredibly dangerous. They're fun.
Oh yeah.
They're enjoyable,
Sure.
but you've got to be extremely careful on motorcycles. If you have a motorcycle accident, it's usually a serious accident.
Yeah.
Because that pavement is hard, and have someone killed. It happens every day, but it's scary. And I'll tell you, this classic turn, I know this from being a rider for so long, most people are seriously injured or killed in a motorcycle when this exact thing happens. Someone takes a turn in front of the motorcycle.
Okay.
They don't see the motorcycle because it's not as visible.
Right.
They turn in front of them, usually a left-hand turn across traffic, and you have to either lay that bike down
Boom.
or you go over the top, and it's never good. And so that being said, be careful if you're on a bike, but no, the fact that he may or may not be speeding does not preclude a claim in any way, shape, or form. Now, it'll depend on how fast and how much he was speeding, what the speed of the other vehicle was, whether he had a turn signal, whether he didn't. All of those things go into the mix in determining who's at fault. And again, in our state and in most states, it's not either one person or the other person is completely at fault. It may be that the person on the motorcycle, the deceased young man, was speeding and maybe assessed some degree of fault.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the other person isn't also at fault and maybe more at fault.
Gotcha.
You need an attorney. If someone's killed, don't try to deal with it.
You just can't do it on your own, really.
Don't even attempt to do it. Call an attorney Monday. Call our office. We're glad to talk to you, advise you, tell you if we think we have a case, and then proceed. All of it on a contingency basis. You don't pay us unless we win.
All right, Ivan, great email question this week.
Sorry to hear about that, Ivan.
Yeah, a very serious email coming in, and but good one for all about injury tonight, because that one is as bad as it gets right there. So, all right, that takes us into our final break of the evening. Jim, hold on from Diamond Head. We're going to get to you when we come back after the break, plus contact information for Jim Reeves and Matthew Mestayer when we come back on Law Call. Welcome back to Law Call on this Saturday night. Thank you so much for staying up late with us. Here's that contact information. Jim Reeves, Matthew Mestayer, Reeves and Mestayer, 228-374-5151. They have their toll-free number. And rmlawcall.com, which we were talking about earlier. A great place to send us those email questions. They've got blogs and posts and pictures and the show. It's got everything on there. It's a whole night's worth of entertainment right there on the website by itself. And you can hear that jazzy song. You got to turn it up a little bit. Y'all got to kind of, Jim, if you're ready, we're going to get to the phones. We're going to go to another Jim. Let's see if I do this right. All right, there we go. We're going to go to Jim in Diamond Head. Jim, thank you so much for staying up late with us. What can we help you with tonight?
I was wondering, how do you verify how much insurance a person has? How much coverage do they have?
Like for like a car accident, something like that, Jim?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
I got you. Yeah, if you've been involved in an accident, it is good to know.
Yeah, and this can be a little tricky, believe it or not. So you're in an accident with someone else, you deal with an adjuster on the other side. My experience, more often than not, unless it's a minimal policy, meaning it's a very small policy, the adjuster will not typically reveal the limits to you, okay? Which in my mind has always been very foolish, and I tell them this every time, because once I file a lawsuit, then they have to provide me with that information. So they basically force, in a lot of cases, their client to be sued, because as soon as we file a lawsuit, we're able to request it, subpoena that document, get that information immediately.
Right.
And so I talk to these guys, these adjusters, a lot of times. Say, look, you just forced me to sue your client, because I'm not going to settle unless I know the amount of coverage, especially in a serious case. And sometimes they give it to you, sometimes they don't. But the short answer is you cannot force them to provide it to you.
How about that?
Beforehand. You can once you've sued them.
Is it, Jim, as you've gone through the process, do you kind of realize early on, like, oh, they probably don't have enough insurance for this, or do you get a sense of, oh, they've got a big policy and they can afford a little bit
well,
more?
you know, usually, like I said, if it's a minimal policy and a serious injury, then they usually will tell you, okay?
Right.
Like I said, they know they're going to have to pay the limits. If you've got a $200,000 claim and they've got $30,000 coverage, they know you're going to have to pay the coverage. They'll tell you. But if they say we're not going to tell you, that usually means they've got more coverage.
Okay. I got you.
And there are other things we do as attorneys. If you have someone, if the person that hits you in an accident is driving an old vehicle, maybe not worth much, probably doesn't have a big policy. If they're driving a new, nicer vehicle, a professional or something, then they probably got more insurance. Okay.
On that, something like that.
Generally.
Gotcha.
Right, so.
Jim, really do appreciate the call tonight.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate you staying up here with us in Diamond Head on this Saturday night. I think we've had Jim before on the show. He sounded like he knew what he was doing over there.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I always do appreciate it. The other thing, I guess, real quick, Jim, that underinsured motorist coverage that you can get from your insurance company is just so important, isn't it?
Yeah,
for somebody who's under.
And we talk about it so much because it is important. I feel like maybe people get tired of hearing it, but it can't be said enough, really. If you don't get anything out of these shows that we do about car accidents, and we're talking about car accidents and insurance, make sure that you have what is called under or uninsured coverage. You can look at your insurance card, and it should be on the back. It should say uninsured,
that's right.
Underinsured, and the amounts. And if you don't have it or you're not sure, call your agent. They're required to provide you the opportunity to purchase that, at least up to the level of your primary insurance coverage. And it's always good to get the maximum amount that you can get. It's generally cheap, and more often than not, if you're in an accident, you're going to need it, because most people in this state and surrounding states either have no insurance or very little insurance.
That's right.
And if you're in a serious accident, you will blow through that in medical expenses a lot of times in just a day, okay? And so you need that. What basically the uninsured coverage does, and those that watch a lot know if they listen, it basically steps into the foot of the place, rather, of the person that hit you. If they don't have enough, it provides the coverage for them to pay you, okay? And so it's very important that you have that, particularly in this state where so many drivers are underinsured or uninsured altogether.
Right. And I've said this before, I want everybody to know that Jim doesn't receive any money or kickbacks, or me or anybody when we're talking about talking to your insurance agent. It's just free, good advice, thoughts.
It's just an easy decision. A lot of people don't understand how it works or why you need it, but it's cheap. And a lot of times people, just to save a few bucks on their premiums, will say, I don't want it.
Right, but you
really
get in that accident,
you really need that coverage.
Jim, generally, rule of thumb as we kind of wrap up all about injuries here tonight, when should somebody, when they're gauging their injury, when should they really think about, I need to call an attorney? If they're just sore after let's say like a car accident, maybe not, but if you've got a broken bone, maybe so? Absolutely.
So, if you have a light impact, we'll kind of look at a couple things. It's sort of the way that lawyers that handle these cases analyze them. If you have a case with significant property damage, meaning the car is really torn up pretty bad, then you had a significant impact. You need to get medical, at least an examination pretty quickly, because it's a good chance you may have a significant injury, even if it's not obvious, okay? Light impact, maybe something you can handle yourself.
Gotcha.
Any kind of broken bone or obviously serious injury, you need to at least consult with an attorney who'll do it for free before you sign a release and accept a check.
Appreciate everybody staying up with us so late tonight after the football game. We will be back next Saturday with Matthew Mestayer here live in studio once again, answering more of your calls and questions here on Law Call. But until then,